Corey Baumeister
Bolus's Citadel
into these Jund Sacrifice decks because alongside Mayhem Devil, so this has been a labor of love
to win the game.
You know, Corey, he does the dropping bombs for Star City games. He's played. I know he's done a mono green video, but it was at the Sir Farron list that Z Mousewitch kind of originated. And you know, he's done some coverage covering mono green, and then it was actually this past week on Versus Live where he played against Ross Marion on Thursday. Ross played. They did a Team of Reclamation gauntlet. So Team of Reclamation against the best decks of Standard, and the first matchup they had was mono green. Corey and Ross were like, "Hey, we're going to use your list for the thing," and Corey just bulldozed
thing. It's the sum of the parts really lines up nicely for decks like Sacrifice.
Wilderness Reclamation is going to join the fray right now, so going to untap those lands, and we're going to head back over to Ichikawa. Castle Lochlane might be the land here, and it is. Solemn Simulacrum, one of my favorite cards in Magic history, also because this is the kind of card, Patrick, where you cast it, and the opponent kind of looks at it, and they're just like, I don't know, I kind of want to counter it, but like, kind of don't want to counter it, but you're fine with it most of the time as a player casting Solemn either way, right?
It's kind of, it's a lot of net happiness because the person casting it is like, wow, this feels good. And the opponent goes, thank God that was their turn. So everyone's happy. Everyone's happy.
And if they kill your Solemn, you're okay with it. You get a little card, you got a land out of the deal. Doesn't attack for a ton, attacks for enough.
But your opponent's like, I don't know, I have to shock against this control deck. What else was it going to do? Like, at least I traded off with some mana. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, this is an interesting addition here in Llanowar Visionary. That's a new card from Core Set 2021, not getting a lot of press. 3 mana, 2/2, enters the battlefield, draws a card, and taps for a green mana, so it is a little bit of ramping in this strategy that, again, does want to get to Bolus's Citadel. Trail of Crumbs is going to be placed on the stack. Negate's going to take care of that, so that's not going to be allowed to resolve. And now we're going to... Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's just more of the same stuff too, but Solemn Simulacrum, right? It's more cards, more mana, just more stuff to do. A lot of the times where I think Jund Sacrifice gets into trouble is when it doesn't have things proactive to do with its mana, or it doesn't have any of its synergy pieces, and just plays like a curve of not very good creatures. And this stuff that cantrips and generates more mana, I think, is a better structural fit.
Temple of Epiphany, going to put that top card to the bottom. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, is going to join the fray. Escape. Means to get to draw a card. Gain some life, put a land on the battlefield. Looks like a Stomp Ground enters the battlefield tapped. Wilderness Reclamation, trigger. We're going to float some mana here. And for Franco, looks like no. So, Yuki Ichikawa is going to sacrifice a Fabled Passage. This is going to dig up a basic forest. That'll enter the battlefield untapped, of course. And now Priest of Forgotten Gods looks like it's going to sacrifice some creatures. So let's get rid of Solemn and the kitty cat. Boy, doesn't that feel free?
That is draw a card. Yes, indeed, I would like to draw a card.
Draw another card from the Priest. I'm sure you'll be getting that Call to Familiar back at some point. Looks like Gilded Goose is going to make a food. So here's one thing about this deck, all kidding aside. It looks like no shortage of things to do for Ichikawa, like every single turn between getting a food back, activating Trail of Crumbs, activating Priest, like all this other stuff. It seems very easy to do.
And don't forget about Castle Lochlane also. Just another thing to do.
So let's see what kind of attacking is to be done here. I guess the weakness of this deck, if I had to think of a weakness, though we are somewhat new to this, is like just as far as getting in combat is concerned, I'm not going to be doing a ton of that, right? You can attack, but you're not attacking for like these huge chunks of damage, right?
No, it's a slow grind, and so especially against Wilderness Reclamation, there's a threat of just getting overpowered. It is a very slow grind.
Looks like Priest sacrificing some more creatures, going to bring Franco down to 8. Scavenging Ooze, just more to do with the mana. Take care of that Uro now. Don't let that thing escape. And now Woe Strider coming back from the graveyard. Yeah, there is definitely no shortage of things to do with the mana in this deck. The question, as you mentioned, I guess the question that needs to be asked that you briefly touched on is just, while you're doing all of this dirtling around, is Team of Reclamation just going to bulldoze through you with their namesake enchantment and expansion explosion?
Well, I mean, Farah has not really done anything of note at this point. He's just been trading off cards. So as long as the game looks like that, really good news for Ichikawa.
Frantic inventory. Okay. Accumulated knowledge. Welcome back to Magic, at least in some form. Now going to cycle a Triome. It looks like there's a dog that is very interested in this game. Where you live.
Oh, that's the neighbor's dog.
Here comes the
I hate the dog and I hate my neighbors. I actually got a really good photo the other day of the dog being locked out back. They lock it outside all the time, and it's just tearing their doormat to shreds. And I got a little video of that. That made my day.
Gotcha. Noted. Well, they did bring dogs back to Magic, so I think that's apropos. Here come the beatdowns. Woe Strider, Scavenging Ooze coming in for, I'm going to say this in the loosest of terms, the final 8. Because I don't believe it to be true.
And
there we go.
Priest of the Forgotten Gods up with 2 non-attackers here to be able to answer a potential mid-combat shark.
Well, you're going to see an activation of Gilded Goose very quickly. Now, Cauldron Familiar is going to sacrifice the food that the Gilded Goose did make. Shark Typhoon got cycled for 6. You mentioned Priest of the Forgotten Gods. We'll say, I'm going to activate this before you get the opportunity to block. Obviously, Yuki Ichikawa was not going to miss that. And that's going to be a Game 1 victory there for our Jund Sacrifice players. So we go to the sideboard here. We're going to keep our focus on Yuki, and you're going to see Heartless Act. Agonizing Remorse, a card that you talked about a little bit earlier on the top of the show. Bolas' Citadel, looks like 2 are hanging out on the board and 2 are in the main deck here. Corvold, looks like it might be either in the sideboard or moving to the sideboard. An interesting build of a deck that, look, it can see and go through a lot of cards.
Yeah, I do like the addition of the cantrip creatures because, I've played against this deck quite a bit, and there are spots where you don't have your synergy pieces, you don't have Oven plus Cauldron Familiar, or you don't have Trail of Crumbs and a way to make food over and over again, and you just sort of putter out. I mean, your cards like Woe Strider and Mayhem Devil are not going to be good enough to beat most of your opponents unless you're doing something really synergistic. So having more cards that kind of like flatten out the deck, lower the variance a little bit, and let you play that sort of resource grind, it's not at the expense of the synergy stuff. It's still there in the deck, though it's a little bit de-emphasized. See a little bit less copies of Mayhem Devil here post-board. But I think those creatures do a lot of work to smooth out the draws of the deck and make it a little less all or nothing on if you have your synergy pieces.
I'm going to take his time doing the sideboarding here at Ichikawa. Remember, folks, we got 144 players here playing in our championship qualifier number 2. And I also do want to mention, because of that, we got 8 rounds. So we got plenty of Magic to bring you. Ryan Overturf, Todd Anderson, they're going to bring you rounds 3 and 4. Me and P. Sell will be back in the booth for 5 and 6. And if you're picking up on the trend here, that means Turf and Todd will be back for rounds 7 and 8 as we work ourselves towards another top 8 here. Qualify 8 more players for our seasonal championship that'll be taking place on Sunday, July 19th, as these players take a look at their opening hands. And it looks like Yuki Ichikawa is happy with his. It's a little bit on the slow side.
I mean, now he is much better at Magic than I am, so I'm just gonna sit and watch this. But I think the second Bolas' Citadel kind of constitutes a mulligan anyway, and the hand wasn't that great to begin with. So my intuition would have been to send it back, but let's just see how it goes.
This one feels, to me personally, I think I'm on the same page as you. It feels like a little bit of a loose keep, but I think maybe the thought process here is. Look, Bolas' Citadel is so good. I got 2 copies. They counter the first. I resolve the second, and the game ends. But it doesn't mean the game is going to play out that way.
What turn is that?
There's a third one.
Well, now even if they counter the second one, you still got it rolled up.
That's right. There's no way they could have a third one, could they? I will disagree.
Targeted that one with Battle Display the other day.
Frantic Inventory number 2 is going to draw 2 cards. That is a Fabled Passage. Doesn't look to have a Wilderness Reclamation, so we're going to head back over to Ichikawa. And here it is, folks, the Solemn Simulacrum. Just bad enough not to counter, or is it? Fabled Passage will be sacrificed. Nightpack Ambusher. Well, that'll resolve, but that means so will Solemn. Gonna get a little Lansky Poo. One step closer to Bolas' Citadel. Looks like another swamp here. Can, of course, sacrifice that Solemn Simulacrum to the Witch's Oven. That's just good deck building.
You get to draw a card. Oh. Perhaps land number 6.
It better
start letting the good times roll.
Quick little block here. Don't waste any time. Sacrifice that to the oven. Make a food. You mentioned draw a card. One coming here. If I were in a casino, I'd have the dealer send me that card face down. It's going to be face up. It's an Overgrown Tomb. That's a nice one to find. Night Pack Ambusher is going to trigger, make a Wolf, Cauldron Familiar at the draw. This will be a Cauldron Familiar right away. So Ichikawa not in a rush to try to resolve Bolas' Citadel, does have a copy of Murderous Rider, more importantly Swift End, and now here is a copy of Trail of Crumbs. This one is oftentimes worth countering, and I like the sequencing here, as there's a copy of Aether Gust. Aether Gust is going to take care of the Trail.
Yeah, trying to induce a negate here, freeing up Swift End, or maybe a Bolas' Citadel somewhere down the line.
Ichikawa's going to pay that 2 life for the Overgrown Tomb, fall down to 19. Swift End, when will it be cast? That is the big question. Will it be cast now, or will it be cast on the opponent's turn? Now wouldn't be a bad time in response to that Fabled Passage being sacrificed, because could avoid a mystical dispute, but Ichikawa's going to hold steady with that Swift End, and now he's going to do it on the upkeep. Go after the Night Pack Ambusher. I like this, too, because if a counterspell is played to stop the Swift End, that means the Night Pack Ambusher will not trigger and make a 2/2 Wolf.
Yeah, you're playing potentially in a mystical dispute, but in Game 2, that card is very unlikely to be in Ferrari's deck, and this is so much better against Negate or any other 2-mana interaction that I think this is that's the better sequence right there.
Well, the Swift End is going to resolve. Ichikawa will lose a little bit of life there, fall down to 17. Here comes a Wolf. Will we see a block? We certainly will. Cauldron Familiar is really good at doing that. So there's your block, there's your sack. Get yourself a food token, and that cat will be back on the battlefield here in just a moment. Breeding Pool's going to the battlefield untapped there for Franco. And that cat's not back just yet. Hello, Bolas' Citadel #1. Plenty more where that came from. But what is plenty?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, off to the races we go. Cauldron Familiar is going to come off the top of the deck, it looks like. Brazen Borrower says, not so fast, Bolas' Citadel. Back to the grip. Cauldron Familiar will resolve, trigger. Gain a little, drain a little. And now I'm going to cycle Triumph, will Franco. Of course, it's early. Both these players are 1-0. As that Wolf is going to come across. This Cauldron Familiar, will it block? The answer is, of course it will. So that cat will step in the way. Witch's Oven, sacrifice. Make a little food. Cat will head to the graveyard for now, as 3 food tokens are on the battlefield. Franco falls down to 14. And, alright, let's bring some cats back. This engine certainly can be frustrating to play against, Patrick.
Well, it's pressure and it's cushion and it locks out the ground. It's not unbeatable. Obviously, people play other decks, but there's a lot of terms of engagement that do not work against this combination.
Agonizing Remorse. Well, there's a hand. Expansion Explosions, plural, alongside a Scorching Dragonfire in a land.
Keep it coming.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why not. Take a look at the graveyard too. See if there's anything juicy to take from there. Remember, Remorse, you get to look at your opponent's hand. You get to choose a non-land card from it or a card from the graveyard. Not sure how often that actually, graveyard removal comes up, but it's non-zero, as a Stomping Ground will enter the battlefield tapped. Swamp on top of the deck means that we're going to have to stop this realm of Bolas' Citadel for right now. But look, if you are Franco, you need to find some action or something of relevance, because this Bolas' Citadel is causing some problems. We're going to have a Cauldron Familiar come back here from the graveyard, sacrifice a food, a little drain, a little gain, so it's going to be 10-11 here after all said and done. I have to imagine that kitty cat's going to jump in front of that Wolf token.
Yeah, the Scorching Dragonfires, Ichikawa's made this game not about spot removal. I used the Exile from Graveyard mode the other day with Agonizing Remorse on the Escape Elspeth in a game that I handedly lost.
You saw Blast Zone look to take care of those Cauldron Familiars in that Witch's Oven, and eventually that did work, but in the interim, you saw a Cauldron Familiar get sacrificed to the Witch's Oven. Now one's going to get hit by a Scorching Dragonfire. Will the other one try to come back here right now is the question. To try to jump in front of this Wolf token isn't necessary, because you do want some life to work with when you do have Bolas' Citadel on the battlefield, but that Wolf's going to come through. Swamp is the draw. Oven will be the play off the top of the deck, so Ichikawa's going to fall down to 8. Blood Crypt off the top. Going to enter the battlefield tapped. Overgrown Tomb, the top card of the deck. Here comes Murderous Rider. That's a hard cast. So Bolas' Citadel, unfortunately, here for Ichikawa, has not been all that impressive. Has drawn a couple cards, yes, but we have not seen him go off in the way that you would think he would be able to. So Scorching Dragonfire.
And there's also some
blade. Go ahead.
Some burden on him to get the game over with soon, because I know he's gotten some copies of Expansion and Explosion out of Ferrari's hand, but probably not all of them. And if he goes low and isn't applying that much pressure, one of those off the top could end the game.
Well, there's the incredibly powerful namesake enchantment of this deck. It's Wilderness Reclamation. Trigger. This is a Brazen Borrower on the hard cast, it looks like. Yes, sacrifice the food token. Gonna gain a little bit of life. Up to 11 goes Ichikawa. Untap all those lands with the rack. All right, draw a card. Top card, Woe Strider, fall down to 8. Return to Nature is on top of the deck. What are we going to do here? Destroy target enchantment. That makes some sense. Cool. Okay, that's gone. Witch's Oven, we're at 5. Cauldron Familiar brings us down to 4 temporarily.
Yeah, but 2 ovens here. This is just going to be a lot to work with. And Farah's life total starting to become problematic as well.
Here we go. All right, so there's Witch's Oven. Now here comes Trail of Crumbs. How many permanents we got on that battlefield? I think enough, right? Sacrifice 10 and Dome you for 10? Hello! That's a good game there from Franco, and that's a winner there for Yuki Ichikawa. He's going to win this match 2-0. Jun Sacrifice going to take care of Team of Reclamation, and though he did keep a hand with 2 Bowls of Citadels and then did draw another, look, 1 is good enough, and I think that's why he thought, you know what, these games are going to go long enough. If I get a Bowls of Citadel on the battlefield, that'll take care of things, and Patrick, that ended up being the case.
Yeah, I don't say things like this person's better at Magic